So I missed last week's review, and this week's review I'm a day late because I decided to have a life yesterday. So I'm pretty bad for the reviews for the past couple of weeks here, but we gotta talk about episode 9 because I thought episode 9 was absolutely stunning. Last week's episode, episode 8, was a solid episode, but nothing really wowed me that much that I needed to come up here and break down what I loved and didn't love. But this week's episode is the complete opposite. There's so many little moments in this episode that really impress me and keep up the quality and why I like this series so much. And the biggest reason is how it covers up its plot holes that could be plot holes down the line, and the biggest moment in my opinion is when Juri tries to extract her own jellyfish and fails at it, because if she didn't do that, that could be a major issue of why is Juri truly trapped after they break the Master Stone. She has the ability to extract what's really keeping her, and immediately I was like, there's no way she could be trapped, there's no, why couldn't she use her own ability against herself? And then she immediately tries it, and it just made me smile, because I appreciate how much this show has been doing little moments like that, because down the line they could go back and cover up those trails, but most of the time in these episodes they cover up anything that could be considered a plot hole down the line. But what I really like is actually learning more about the villain Sagawa. His motives seemed good enough, and usually anime just kind of go ahead with that. It's good enough, people are gonna understand why the villain's turning into a giant evil monster. That's good enough, but I actually appreciate learning a bit more about his true motives, about basically how he wants to remove these shackles of time that hold a regular human down, and essentially in a lot of ways appear like a god and see, you know, 100 years down the line we're not going to know what the future looks like, but someone like him who masters his ability absolutely can, and it gives it a bit more interesting of a motive for why he's doing the things he's doing. Of course, he doesn't understand his full abilities, doesn't know how to use his abilities 100%, so of course he wants to get into fights. He wants to basically master his abilities, and then essentially live the ultimate life in a lot of ways, if you can look past the fact that he's more or less not human anymore. And that gives it a lot more interesting of a reason, because some of the criticism that I have saw is that the villain of the series doesn't quite strike the viewer as someone who really has a good motive for doing the things that he's doing, and I agreed up until this episode, because now seeing a bit more into his mentality, what he's truly going for, with the help of his former accomplice, it makes so much more sense, it makes him even more intriguing, and it makes this entire series just that much better, in my honest opinion. Just all the little moments in this episode where Juri goes back into the house because the grandfather, based on last week, he had his blood stolen, so he's essentially losing his jellyfish, which would ultimately mean that they wouldn't have their trump card, which is the ability to teleport wherever they want. So of course Juri does the one thing that she can, and she destroys the Master Stone, essentially locking everyone into stasis. However, she could extract the jellyfish from everyone except herself, but that doesn't really strike me as she's doomed just yet. Like, I have a sneaking suspicion that there's gonna be either one of the characters who hasn't shown sign of powers yet is going to have something that's going to change this, or maybe Sagawa is going to maybe strike a deal with Juri. Maybe there's going to be some way that they could see eye to eye, he can get what he wants, and then she can get what she wants. Who absolutely knows, but I could definitely see Juri dying, but at the same time, or not really dying, but being stuck in this world. But at the same time, I feel like there's a good chance, I would say there's a good 60% chance that she could get out of this alive with her family, but really only time will tell. But the fact of the matter is that we saw the little boy this week awaken his abilities, and it definitely feels like everyone with a jellyfish probably has the potential to have abilities, and maybe it just needs something to trigger it. The boy can literally control heralds, and of course, the douchebag father has to take credit for it. I absolutely hate that guy, I have to actually say. When he was getting chased and it looked like he was about to get killed by a herald, I was actually rooting for his death. Even if that makes me a bad person. He just strikes me as a scumbag. He thinks he knows best. He's gonna be the Robin Hood of the family. No, he's an idiot, and I was actually really hoping he would die. But granted, the kid awakens a pretty awesome ability that will give them a way to fight the villain of the series, so I guess it's worth it keeping him around for right now. But I just don't find him to be an interesting character. All the characters in this series, perfectly fine with. Some I like, some I'm neutral with. But him is just, he strikes me as the most arrogant bastard, that he's like taking credit for the little kid's ability because he feels so useless in his own life that he has to lie and take credit for like an 8-year-old boy. Like, how much of a piece of shit do you have to be? Seriously, it's just absolutely ridiculous. But granted, the fact that he can control that walking, like, almost animal-like Harold. That's going to be pretty cool to see how he's going to fight against the villain and ultimately where it's going to go. But I like this episode because it establishes a lot, establishes more motives for the villain. It establishes a pretty big roadblock for our main character, Juri, not being able to leave stasis just yet, but also just further fleshing out some of the other characters, the side characters there, giving another basically building block for the series, that being the little boy who can now control Harold's. Can he just control one, or can he control all? Because if he can control all, will that also have effect on Sagwa? That will be a pretty interesting twist if he could do that. But ultimately, we don't totally know where they could go, but they have so many ways that they could go that it doesn't feel like it's predictable. The show has never felt like it's been predictable, like we know exactly where it's going to go. This thing constantly twists and turns, and I absolutely love that. I know not everyone is wowed by this series like me, and hey, that's fine. But I appreciate the level of detail that it has for its writing in terms of covering up any loose ends that could be considered a plot hole down the line, and overall the characters are good enough. Like, the main characters I enjoy are the grandpa with teleportation ability and Juri. Those are my main two characters that I really enjoy, and Sagwa after this episode has become a major player that I would consider him in the trio now of the characters I thoroughly enjoy. The rest are fine, I don't really hate them. The only one I hate is the father who just keeps trying to do stupid things and needs to get himself killed or extracted from stasis as soon as possible, because he's going to cause issues, and I feel like the fact that he's going to try to pretend that he's controlling it is going to get them in danger. Who the hell knows? But seriously, I actually thought this was a really good episode. I really like the animation on the grandpa's face when he realizes what Juri has done, because he's so broken that his granddaughter is now going to be trapped in here forever, at least in his eyes. There's a lot of motion in this episode. There was a decent amount of kind of more lighter moments, but overall this established a lot for the series, and I'm just impressed that in episode 9, in a series like this, established so much that I thought was going to be forgotten, and I'm just overall impressed. But let me know your thoughts. What was your favorite moment? What did you like or dislike? Let me know down in the comment section below, and before you leave, smack that like button, share your support. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.